Alright, I'm more or less going to start recording now. Hi everyone again, thanks for tuning in. This is Anomalous here, and we're going to go through another ACR case file. In the background you're going to hear some Swedish House Mafia, so let's get started. A 58-year-old woman presents after a motor vehicle accident. The single vehicle crash occurred at 70-80 miles per hour, and the patient was a restrained passenger in the front right seat. The crash resulted in a rollover with airbag deployment. Physical examination revealed contusions and abrasions along the abdomen in the distribution of the seatbelt, consistent with a seatbelt sign. Now here we have an axial CT where it shows, let's see what it shows. Certainly see some free fluid around the edge here along the liver. Certainly some perisplenic fluid as well, with a small laceration at least in the spleen. So, wonder if I see a formal hepatic laceration. Can't say I do, but there is some perihepatic fluid. So I'm just going to have to say almost yes on speculation. But I wouldn't be surprised if it shot me back. I don't see any extraluminal gas at this point. I think everything is intraluminal from what I can tell. And within the bowel, although this I wouldn't be is questionable. There wasn't a hepatic laceration, so burned on that. So other CT findings include rib fractures, a scapular fracture, and some free fluid in the dependent portion of the pelvis, which is thought to be related to the splenic laceration. The patient's splenic laceration and fractures were managed conservatively, and she remained in stable condition. However, on the second hospital day, the patient developed severe abdominal pain with peritoneal signs. A repeat contrast-enhanced CT of the abdomen and pelvis was obtained. So again, we have, looks like an axial, coronal, and another coronal CT of the abdomen and pelvis. So, mesenteric fat stranding, absolutely. All this stuff here, this increased streaky attenuation, it's definitely yes. Layering fluid in the pelvis, suggesting hemorrhage. Yes, we do have that. Poorly enhancing bowel. This can be tough to tell just on the images they gave, especially when you can't zoom in or adjust, but I think some of these loops of bowel are questionably non-enhancing. Kind of ill-defined, so I'm going to have to say yes. I still do not see any extraluminal gas, at least on my monitor, though you know what, a few of these specs I think are, so. Is there fecalized small bowel? I think so. This mottled material, which is difficult to see, looks like it's fecalized. So I'm going to go ahead and click all of them, because all of them are at least questioned at this point. Still no extraluminal gas, so whatever. The patient was taken to the OR for exploratory laparotomy because of concern for ischemic bowel and or mesenteric injury. This was suggested by a region of poorly enhancing fecalized bowel with mesenteric fat, stranding, and an increase in layering free fluid, suggestive of hemorrhage. At surgery, she was found to have a well-demarcated ischemic area of small bowel that had separated from the mesentery, with the gross appearance consistent with a relatively rare entity called the bucket handle tear of the mesentery. No perforation was present. The ischemic segment was resected. So, regarding mesenteric injury, true or false? Mesenteric injury should be considered in case of blunt trauma to the abdomen and in the setting of rapid deceleration injuries. That's absolutely true. You can get blunt trauma, let's say the abdomen, seatbelt, steering wheel, whatever, and all you'll see is some pericolonic fat stranding, which may get worse and worse as you go on, and you follow that almost radiographically. The mechanism of injury and tears of the mesentery is related to fixed versus mobile structures in the abdomen, with injuries tending to occur adjacent areas that are fixed. Now, common sense says that's also true. Sounds good. Now, which of the following are fixed structures in the abdomen? Ooh. So cecum. Oh man, I should know this. I believe the flexures should be. Transverse colon, not so much. That thing is pretty mobile. Seen it become quite redundant. The sigmoid. Oh, that's close. The rectum is. Sigmoid is close. It might. Ah, the cecum isn't. So it's not fixed. Fair enough. The fixed gastrointestinal structures in the abdomen are those that are secondarily retroperitoneal or attached firmly to the posterior wall of the abdomen, and include the ligament of Treitz, which is the only fixed point in the small bowel beyond the duodenum, the ascending and descending colon, including the hepatic and splenic flexures, and the rectum. Cecum is variable in its fixation. Yeah, that's what threw me off, as is mobile in many patients. The transverse colon and sigmoid colon are on mesenteries and are not fixed. Makes sense. So these are some of the previous images. Again, this axial contrast-enhanced CT shows the splenic laceration, perisplenic fluid, perihepatic fluid, and some dependent fluid here in the pelvis. You can see or not see, depending how good the images are showing for you, this fluid level here. Some fat stranding, and the bowel wall enhances poorly, which is honestly even tough to see on my monitor. There's no way to blow these images up as far as I can see. It's tough to say that that is not enhancing, but you'd almost have to suspect it with the pericolonic changes here. Again, a coronal showing some of the same things, and you can better see this mottled fecalization. Yep. And a photo of another patient demonstrates this type of injury. This demonstrates 3 bucket handle tears in the small bowel and one spanning much of the transverse colon. These are obvious gross ischemic changes in the bottom center segment. When it turns purple, like that, bad thing. Bucket handle tears of the mesentery. Bowel and mesenteric injuries are relatively common in blunt abdominal injuries, particularly in the setting of a positive seatbelt sign. 3 basic mechanisms can cause bowel and or mesenteric injury and blunt trauma. Direct force may crush the GI tract. Rapid deceleration may produce shearing forces between fixed and mobile portions of the tract, and a sudden increase in intraluminal pressure may result in bursting injury. CT findings specific for mesenteric injury include mesenteric extravasation, mesenteric vascular beating, and sudden termination of mesenteric vasculature. CT findings specific for bowel injury include bowel wall discontinuity and extraluminal oral contrast or gas. 3 basic mechanisms can cause bowel and or mesenteric injury and blunt trauma. Direct force may crush the GI tract. Rapid deceleration may produce shearing forces between fixed and mobile portions of the tract, and a sudden increase in intraluminal pressure may result in bursting injury. Mesenteric tears typically occur as the result of rapid deceleration. When the body experiences deceleration force, the fixed mesenteric roots and the retroperitoneal segments of the small and large bowel remain static relative to the mobile intraperitoneal bowel. As a result, the bowel can tear from the mesentery, resulting in devascularization. When this occurs, an entire segment of bowel can become ischemic and undergo necrosis. CT findings of bowel or mesenteric injury in the setting of blunt abdominal trauma include intra or retroperitoneal free fluid, extraluminal gas or oral contrast, bowel wall discontinuity, mesenteric fat stranding, bowel wall thickening and or poor enhancement, mesenteric hematoma or contrast extravasation, mesenteric vascular beating, and sudden termination of mesenteric vasculature. Of these, CT findings specific for mesenteric injury include mesenteric extravasation, mesenteric vascular beating, and sudden termination of mesenteric vasculature. CT findings specific for bowel injury include bowel wall discontinuity and extraluminal oral contrast or gas. In our case, the only signs of intraperitoneal free fluid were present on the initial CT examination and were reasonably attributed to the identified splenic laceration. Subsequent CT examination showed findings more consistent with mesenteric injury and associated bowel ischemia, including bowel wall thickening, poor contrast enhancement, mesenteric fat stranding, and fecalization of small bowel. The specific but uncommon CT findings of mesenteric injury, such as directly visualized mesenteric extravasation, mesenvascular beating, or sudden termination of mesenteric vasculature, were not definitely seen in our case. Exploratory laparotomy demonstrated a well-demarcated ischemic area of small bowel that had separated from the mesentery with gross appearance consistent with a relatively rare entity called the bucket handle tear of the mesentery. Alright, thanks very much, guys. This is an ACR case file, or case in point. Thanks to them for putting it together, and a big special thanks to Santa Barbara College Hospital, these guys, and the Keck School of Medicine at USC going through this case. This was recorded on Twitch TV. Check out my Twitch TV channel if you get a chance. I'll be doing a lot of streaming of D3 and going through radiology, as well as follow me on Twitter if you get a chance as well. You have Swedish House Mafia in the background. Thanks very much.